Hey everyone, Chad here. I'm excited to share that Can't Stop the Growth has joined the People Forward Network to help advance leaders across the globe. I've reflected on our 130 plus episodes and want to highlight this favorite. I'd love to hear what you take away from this one.
Alrighty, today I'm excited. Didn't really have a topic at the beginning of the week and then was reminded that we have this today. And as oftentimes they do, I think some of the best ones that you find kind of find you. And so I was just kind of searching around probably Tuesday, Wednesday for some inspiration, trying to find something that would relate. And as luck would have it, ran across a podcast with John Maxwell, who I've talked about before. I've done a lot of stuff out of his books. All of his stuff really resonates with me. I think we do a lot of stuff around here that is in line with his way of thinking, that leadership should transpire both for ourselves and as we lead others. So today's talk was a two-part podcast. Definitely recommend downloading his podcast. There's a lot of great stuff, and the way that they do it is really nice, where it's him talking at first, and then it's the host and the co-host kind of dissect what he said, which is really nice. So the topic of today is emotional intelligence. This is something that we've talked about here recently. Jack Needham, who comes in, has talked about it as well, and I thought it was very good, a very good topic to talk about today. So emotional intelligence. The key part about our emotional intelligence is that, as it relates to leadership, is that leaders come in all different shapes and sizes. There isn't one leader in this building that leads exactly the same way as another. And whether that's leading yourself, everybody has different routines and different things that they do to get themselves ready or to get themselves in the right state of mind. But that's okay. And there is not one type of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, again, comes in all different shapes and sizes, simply because emotional intelligence can be learned and can be developed. This is intelligence towards others and our understanding of what that looks like. Maxwell says that leaders with emotional intelligence outperform those without it every time. And I would agree with that. Some of the best leaders that I've seen or observed, or and even some of the ones in here, the ones that do a very, very good job are the ones that really exhibit these 5 characteristics that I'll go into here. The first component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So that one seems simple, right? So being self-aware. They define it as the ability to recognize and understand your mood, emotions, and drives, as well as their effect on others. So I think the first part of that's fairly simple. There again, some people still struggle with that, is understanding their mood and emotion and what drives them, really getting crystal clear on, what motivates me, what do I need to put in my path in order to be successful. The hard part is that back end, as well as their effect on others. So everyone's met the person and be like, God damn, what an ass. And yet, he may not even know that at all. He may think he's a really nice guy, but his self-awareness may be off. The hallmarks of self-awareness are self-confidence, realistic self-assessment, and a self-deprecating sense of humor. So all of those things characterize someone who has really good self-awareness. You can probably think of someone who, they're really aware of themselves and how they come off, and they're always pleasant, and they kind of understand how to approach situations. They just really get themselves, like they get that part. They're not, missing the mark on. They're telling me they want to be portrayed like this, yet me and the rest of the gang over here think something totally different. So self-awareness is definitely key. The other part of that is self-regulation. So as it relates to how aware you are of yourself, how well can you self-regulate? We all have what you would, they're not even flaws, but things about our character that we have to control. And they define self-regulation as the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods, the propensity to suspend judgment, to think before acting. So there again, that guy who's the ass, he's unaware of where he is, and he's unable to regulate those emotions that are coming off, those moods, those comments that are coming off, where he misconstrues who he actually is versus how he's coming off. And that's incredibly important. Self-regulation, to me, is one of the most key things because you have to understand where you are. There's certain things about me that drive me insane. Well, if I'm not aware that those are the things that drive me insane, what's going to happen? Well, when one of those happens, I'm going to fly off the handle and yell at somebody or scream, or that sounds kind of weird. I don't think I'll do that, but I'll do something else that will, not be good. And so understanding what are those triggers, what are those things that others may do or situations that you may be in that irritate you, that want to cause you to be like, ugh, stop doing that. Well, we have to understand, that's part of the self-awareness, and then the other piece is that regulation piece. Okay, how do I understand that? It's happening, and then let me step back, take a breath, and then move forward. The third component of emotional intelligence is motivation. So this is my favorite one, and the one that I think, to me, has to be there. It's kind of the base, and then all of these others are built on top of it. Motivation is defined as a passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status, a propensity to pursue goals with energy and persistence. So why do you wake up in the morning? What is it? There isn't anybody that just woke up this morning just to wake up. It's early. As I always say, when people ask me, why do you get up so early? I go, it's not easy. My bed's comfortable. I bought it that way. I enjoy it. I rolled over. I wanted to go back to sleep. My room is comfortable. But why do you wake up? There's a reason that everybody in this room is here. It's not because you have to be. You don't have to be. You could have slept in. But why do you get up? The hallmark, strong drive to achieve, optimistic even in the face of failure, and an organizational commitment. So there again, what is it that continues or what is it in your life that keeps you continuing on? What is it that makes you want to make today better than yesterday? All of those things go into that motivation piece. And I'll get into it here in a little bit as to why motivation is so key when it comes to leadership and having your motivation in the right frame of mind. The next is empathy. This is probably the hardest. The ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. Skill in treating people according to their emotional reactions. So what is this? This is DISC, right? This is all DISC. This is, they're putting up the big decal this afternoon out there on the wall, and then have everybody's picture where they're supposed to be. And so the one thing I've always taken from DISC as it relates to empathy is the ability to bend towards another. And what if we all did that? What if we all bent towards the person that we were talking to? What if we understood that they receive information like this, that they're motivated by things of this nature? How much better would your leadership be? The hallmarks of empathy, expertise in building and retaining talent, and then cross-cultural sensitivity. So he says cross-cultural. I think you can also say generational. There's a lot of talk about millennials these days. I myself am a millennial, proud. But what is it that motivates each generation? Each generation is different. Many people have heard me talk about my dad. I'm like, my Lord, generationally, what is it about that generation that just does things this way and this way only, and that's just the way they want to do it? I'm like, I don't understand that. But it isn't until you dig in, until you have a little empathy for, there again, that is his circumstance. So how do I respond to that? How do I bend to his particular upbringing or surroundings? And the last of these is social skills. So this is kind of that one that many people think, well, I don't have social skills, or I don't want to be social. Let me read you the definition and see maybe if you think you probably have social skills but may just not know it. Proficiency in managing relationships and building networks, and ability to find common ground and build rapport. So for me, social skills, as many of you know, I am perfectly content if this evening I went home, put Blake to bed, sat on the couch, fell asleep. That sounds like greatness to me. However, I woke up this morning to a group text message with my wife making dinner reservations. Understandable. Looks like I'll be doing that this evening. However, social skills do not relate to your want or desire to be in a social setting or anything like that. Social skills relate to the ability to manage relationships. And in your career, in your personal life, how do you manage the relationships that you're in? How do you manage the relationships that you have with those that you lead? How do you manage the relationships with those on your team? All of those are those social skills. It comes with that understanding of empathy and self-awareness and where your motivation is. So what I'd like to do now is dive into each of these a little bit further. So we have the 5. We've got self-awareness, we've got self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So the 5 components of emotional intelligence. We've got 5, and they all build upon one another, and they're all connected to each other. Self-awareness, how do you see yourself? What do you feel like others perceive you as? So, as many of you know, we do the Amplify survey every quarter. And it's fantastic for myself, other leaders, because there's often times where we see ourselves doing something, we're performing an action to get a result in the relationships that we have, but sometimes the Amplify survey comes back and tells us something different, or that that action isn't working, which is perfectly fine. But the awareness to understand that it isn't me, I just need to refocus and find out what my team needs from me. Maxwell says, you're, what do we got? 5 different things here. You're 5 different people. You are who you are. You are who you think you are. So that's where that kind of, at the beginning there, the guy who thinks he's a really nice guy, but he comes off not so nice all the time. You are who your family thinks you are. You are who your friends think you are. And you are who your acquaintances think you are. The less we know about ourselves, the more we will role play. And that goes back to, at the beginning, those triggers, understanding how you come off, understanding what is your team's perception of you. If you're on a team, what is their perception of you? Are you that person that's always reaching out and helping? Or are you the person that's really concerned about themselves? I don't know. But you have to really dive deep to understand who is it that I really am? And a lot of that stems from consistency. There again, you can't be one person here and then one completely different person somewhere else. That's never going to work. It may work for a short time. You may be able to live kind of a double life, like, oh, I really hate these people, but God, I'm going to go do this meeting and really show them that I care. Like, people can see right through that. That's not going to work. And the consistency is not just in how you talk to somebody. It's in your mood. It's in your values. It's in your principles. And the consistency that you have there, and the great thing about leadership is the consistency there is taken on by your team. They'll follow that. What they won't follow is an inconsistent person who says one thing but does another. That won't work. One thing that I feel like people have always said about me is that very just even keel, just there's not much going on there. Never, my wife gets mad because she gets me a gift and it's like, oh, thanks. I just don't, never super excited. I can't really remember a time that I've been super excited or a time that I've been super like, I think I'm going to cry. And, I think back to like, how did that develop or where did that come from or whatever it is. But the one example that I can always remember is playing football. And, in football, especially in big games and things aren't going right, especially with 18-year-old boys, there is a high degree of wanting to go in one direction or the other. Like super excited, we can do everything, or the sky is falling. And I always found myself in the huddle, so after every play you huddle up, and it's really a time for, you see kind of the true leadership in a football huddle, especially in a big game. And to me, my role, I wasn't the best player on the field, wasn't the one calling the defense or anything like that, but I always felt like my role was to calm everybody the hell down, wherever they were, or to bring them up. Like, are you okay? Like, why are you so, I get it, that didn't go well, but you know what, we're still in the game. And so that's one place where I've always really embraced consistency and where I saw it really be effective. Because sometimes people need that. There are those people that have wide swings in their consistency, and that throws people off because you never know where they're at. It's like, what are they going to do today? And consistency will help stabilize that when it comes to leadership. And consistency, as it relates to self-awareness, is understanding who you are and then being that person all the time. And there may be things that aren't great about your personality. I've got things that aren't great about mine. But it's understanding that what are those triggers that bring out that piece, and then how do I take a breath and not do that, and not go down that path. The other piece about self-awareness is understanding that we all have weaknesses to address, and that's okay. But understanding what they are and then how they come out or how they are perceived by others is where we need to get to in order to be very self-aware. The other piece is self-aware leaders bring people around them to complement their weaknesses. As I mentioned earlier, not super fun. Me. There's a lot of people around here that love to have a lot of fun. Christy and I talk about this a lot. We are driving the non-fun bus. There are some people that love our bus. There are others that despise our bus. And that's okay. But I know that that's not my strong suit. I'm not leading the hoorah, let's go do something fun, bus. I'm not driving that bus. I really enjoy my bus. But the understanding that people need different things and being self-aware that I don't understand why no one's having any fun. Because you're leading that charge. No one is going to have any fun. So bringing in people that need to do that. The other thing that I'm not great at is, having those tough conversations, being super direct, and all of that stuff. That's why we have plenty of D personalities around here that get stuff done. And my job is to support them in doing their job. They just get stuff done. It's just always just getting stuff done, and we're moving forward. But understanding where you're strong, where you're weak, and then how to surround yourself with the people that are going to be able to do those things, and that's their lane. Like, they love that lane all day long. And that's great, because you need a plethora of people around you to be very, very good. And then the other piece of self-awareness is just maturity and the willingness to take feedback. And then once you get that feedback, a willingness to change. Not stuck in your ways. Well, this is how I am. Well, that's great, but no one else is responding to that, so we may have to change a bit. And taking that feedback is not criticism, but just an understanding of how others are going to be motivated to move. And that's okay. And we've seen a lot of examples of people who thought one way for the longest time, and then were open to that feedback, and then were able to excel because, oh, okay, well, I can see that wasn't what I wanted to do for the longest time, but it does seem that I'm getting a little bit better response out of people should I take this path as opposed to whatever path I was on. And there again, there's nothing wrong with whatever path you were on. But there again, being self-aware to understand that my team needs something different. This guy or this gal needs something different from me that I'm not delivering right now. Thus, their performance is suffering. The next, self-regulation. So we've talked a little bit about self-awareness. We dove into that one, understanding that piece. Now the next is self-regulation. So those places in your personality where watch out, like this isn't going to be a good situation. Understanding what that is. And what I equate kind of that self-regulation or lack thereof is kind of that victim mentality. That understanding that, oh, this is all happening to me. Once we take control, once we understand that we're able to self-regulate ourselves and the world is not happening to us, we're happening to it, is the time when you take that step out and you're able to lead yourself. I've never seen someone who has that victim mentality ever be able to lead themselves. Because all they are is just following the next bad thing that's going to happen in their life. Rather than understanding that I can lead myself and I have the power to do that. I'm accountable for my actions. So if I'm doing something and I'm getting a poor result, it's not someone else's fault. Now, there may be factors that are influencing what that outcome is, but there again, what a great power you have to look inside and say, what could I do differently? That person may still be doing something that is contributing to that bad result, no doubt. It happens. However, what can you change? Because if you keep doing the same thing, guess what they're going to do? The same thing. Guess what you're going to get? The same result every single time. We all have to understand as leaders and set the example that we can make anything that we want. There is no rule book when it comes to leading yourself. You get to write it. It's your book. That's the best part about where we live and the opportunity that we have. You get to write the rule book for how you're going to live, for how you're going to be perceived by others, for how you're going to help others. That's the most fun. It's great. You wake up every morning and you have the opportunity to either do or not do. And the worst part about it is usually you know what the right answer is. There's not a lot of times in life that we look around and go, by golly, I just don't know what the answer is. Now, we know what the answer is. It's just a matter of if we're willing to do it. Are we willing to do those little things? Are we willing to self-regulate our behavior? Because our regular behavior, it feels good. It's natural. That's how we are. That's how we're built. But if we keep doing that and we never self-regulate, guess what's going to happen? Whatever result you're complaining about. I think that is the one thing that sets this place apart from anywhere else that I've seen. And there's other great companies out there, don't get me wrong. But the ability to understand where we are and not be afraid to change is the reason we are where we are. Because there's a lot of stuff that we do that's really good, but then we go and change it. Because someone said, well, that's a better idea. Great, let's try it. Let's give it a whirl. But we have to understand that setting those standards, setting those high standards of where we want to go is going to cause us to have to change. We have to be consistent, but change is consistent. Change and improvement. Change and improvement. Try something, it works. Let me try something else. Does it work better, or does it work the same, or does it work less effectively? Well, you may find that it works better. Okay, well, then we're moving to the next step. Always changing things. Always figuring out how we can hold ourselves more accountable. You know, I always joke that the meeting that I always miss every week, and there's a couple of them on my schedule, is the one that I set aside for the time to work by myself. I'll never miss, I may be a few minutes late running from the next one, but I'll never miss a meeting with someone else. But the meeting that I set for myself is the one that I often miss, like every week. That's not holding myself accountable. That's not kind of self-regulating. Because I know that I'd rather go talk to somebody or talk about a new idea or do something like that as opposed to sitting down and putting in the work that needs to be done. And so stuff gets pushed off. I've got to get better at that. The next is motivation. So we talked earlier about motivation. Why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you get going? You know, as leaders, we're called to motivate. I like to call it inspire. Motivate is like, I feel like that can be confused with like, go do your job. And that's not what it is. When it comes to leadership, motivation and the intelligence, the emotional intelligence to do so, I think better relates to inspire. It's my job as a leader to bring more out of you than what you even thought possible. My goal is to provide an environment to where you can be something that you never thought that was possible. You know, self-motivation precedes people motivation. People do what people see. So I've very rarely seen, correct me if I'm wrong, an unmotivated great leader. It doesn't work. You know, as we're trying to correct issues and make things better, it's always, you know, well, how do I get them to do that? How do I motivate them to get there? And I think the question that as an emotionally intelligent leader that you have to ask yourself is how motivated am I? You know, when something needs to be fixed, is it a simple text message? Hey, do this better. Bye. How motivated are you to see a result or an outcome change? Not very. So your people are going to take on that same mentality. Or is it bringing someone in and saying, hey, we're really struggling with this. Where can we get better? What can we do? What can I do to help you? I want to see you get to this level. I want to see you exceed what you did last week. Right there, your team can feel that motivation. That's inspiring somebody. Passion is contagious, and passion is attractive. You know, I watch different people around here, and especially, newer leaders in our company, and you just watch kind of, you interview someone, and you're excited about it, and things are good, and you have high hopes, and then there's always that, how are they going to do? How are they going to do in front of the team? What's that going to look like? And I can tell you that the key in what I've seen people be successful is that passion, that understanding that I was put in this place, I'm confident in my abilities, and we're going to make some things happen. And you have complete ownership of what it is that you're leading. And your people can feel it. They don't just see it, they feel it. They feel your passion for whatever it is that the group is responsible for doing. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. How do I make them feel it? I don't have to say it to them. I want them to watch me. I want them to hear me. And I want them just to be so wanting to run through that wall, it's not even funny. It takes time. It does. It's not easy. If it was easy, what do they say? Everybody would do it, right? It's hard. Because you've got to dig in and find out what motivates all of those people on your team. And then you've got to show them that you too care about that. So one of the key pieces in motivation, I feel, and this is something that I don't know that I've always had, but what I've learned is that it helps a lot, is are optimistic even during difficulties. I will share a small win for myself, personally. So this is a quality of mine that I really get behind. Like, especially when people are pushing back on me. Like, God damn, like, dude, calm down. Like, really optimistic about this whole thing. So I kind of push back. It kind of energizes me. And so there is no bigger pusher-backer than my lovely wife. And she pushed back on me like there was no tomorrow. She's like, would you shut up? This isn't good. Well, you got to look at the positive side of things. I mean, it could be worse. And she absolutely despises me for that. I think she's almost hit me a couple times. However, I did get a small victory. About a month ago, she did say that outlook is starting to help her a little bit. So, some people, it takes a while. It'll be 4 years of marriage coming up here in next week. Yeah, next week. Next Thursday. And, but so it took 4 years, to break through that. A little less, but, 4 years to break through that. But there again, that's bending into her personality. That's not her. She wouldn't consider her, she's optimistic, but she's not over the moon like, oh, I'm going to really make this thing run. And that's okay. And so I'm probably not a great leader at home when I, kind of egg her on with being overly optimistic. So that's probably a character flaw of mine, but it's fun. For the short time. But being optimistic, I think, is extremely critical because there is always a solution. There's always a solution, regardless of how bad it's going, regardless of how terrible it is, regardless of how many no's we've heard out in the field, there is always a solution. But we won't find that solution until you take responsibility for your outcome. It won't happen. You have to couple your motivation, why you do it, with that self-awareness and your self-regulation in that I'm not gonna fall in the pessimistic land, because what good is gonna happen there? Nothing. There is nothing good that happens there. All we do is feel sorry for ourselves. There is always a positive outcome. Some are harder to find than others, depending on the situation. Understandable. However, there is always a positive. There's always something that's going to happen. The next is empathy. Empathy is thoughtfully considering the feelings of others along with other factors in the process of making decisions. So I would say this has probably been the toughest as we've grown. You know, and Christy and I talk about this a lot. You know, before it was just, you know, me and her, we'd make a decision. Don't need to tell anybody else, just tell them when the decision's made. Done. Now that you have other stakeholders and other people involved, that discussion looks a lot different. That discussion looks like, hey, here's the idea. Okay, who does this all affect? How many people are involved? And it's kind of funny to think, like, you know, we're doing a project right now on in the service department on turnovers. Well, like, normally, if we were making that decision a long time ago and there aren't that many people, it's like, well, just go do it. You know, you're good. I think the meeting was like 8 people deep, because as you get bigger, there's more pieces. And the empathy comes in saying that, let's get everybody's point of view. Let's get how that affects everybody from every different angle. Because there are a lot of moving pieces. And the great leaders understand that I need to view it from everybody's perspective. It's when we just go in and do something, and it's easy to do, because it's like, I know the answer, this is going to help, let's just go do it, rather than getting input from others, rather than including others. Thoughtfully considering the feelings of others. There again, as it relates to DISC, there are certain profiles that feelings are more important. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine. But we have to understand that each personality type is going to have different feelings about different things. Your D personality, they're going to have strong feelings about getting stuff done. C personalities, I have extremely strong feelings about correct documentation and bulleted list, which I think everybody ought to take up, so look into it. Just make the world so much better. I'll keep beating that drum, but you guys can jump on if you want. But seriously, empathy, John Cotter said, great leaders win over the hearts and minds of others. Hearts coming before minds. You'll need the minds of your people. You'll need their skills. You'll need everything that they can do in their job. However, they won't do it as effectively as you want them to, as you need them to, as they want to, until they know how much you care. It won't happen. You can teach and teach and teach and teach and teach and teach. They'll never get it until they know how much you care. Until they know how much you care that they get it. Until they know how much you want them to succeed. That's true empathy right there. When you're leading someone and you know that they want to be successful, but they may not have the answers, or that's just something they just don't know about, or whatever it is, when you can show them that you care, you'll get a lot of things done. The teams that do the best around here are the teams with the leaders that their team knows that they care. They want them to be successful. There's a quote in there that Maxwell says that they won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. How do you make them feel? How do you uncover how you make them feel? You can ask them. You could take some time to think about how you may come off to them. Self-awareness. You could take some time to think introspectively a little bit and understand that this is probably a quality of mine that most don't understand and or comes off the wrong way. Maybe you ought to find out what that is and why that makes me so whatever. The most important thing in building a team is that level of care, that environment that you create. And the cool part is when you create it to the point where you've got some buy-in from people and things are moving in the right direction, people on your team start creating that environment. They start helping other people. They start showing that they care about the others on their team. It's like a snowball, but it starts with you. And it doesn't matter if you're the leader or not, it can always start with you. I say that all the time. Anybody can be a leader in the company. Does not matter where you are, does not matter what position you are. If you reach out and help somebody every day, guess what you're going to be? It's inevitable. Who isn't going to say, that person should be leading us? I'd follow them anywhere they went. Isn't that simple? Leadership is not super complicated. It's when we make it complicated, it gets complicated. Communication and care. All of these things that we're talking about today are very easy because why? They're all in our control. There's no level that you need to be at. There's no promotion that you need to get. There's no course you need to take. There's no book you need to read. You literally just have to care about people and show them. That's how simple it is. Relationships are the foundation of leadership. And think about any good relationship that you have. Think about your best friend. Think about your spouse. Why do you have a good relationship? When does your relationship veer off? A lot of times for me, it's when I forget to show the other person that I care. It's critical. It's not easy. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? Day to day, got to get this done, got to get this report, got to get to this meeting. How do you show someone you care? You can tell them. You can sit down with them for 15 minutes. Say, hey, how can I help you? Really just want to make you successful. What are you struggling with? What help do you need from me? That may not happen instantly. Relationships are built over time. You know, you can't just go out and say, well, I helped Susie over there, but hell, no one's following me. Well, okay, you got to give it some time here. Maxwell says, humility is not weakness, and arrogance is not strength. Humble leaders score very high on emotional intelligence. Again, very, very difficult for someone to understand that you care about them if all you're concerned about is yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you make sure everybody else is successful, guess what that makes you? Again, very simple. But it takes time. And we ourselves will get in our own way. And that's okay. That's part of life. We're going to take the wrong course. We're going to do the wrong thing. That's fine. But it's the want and the desire and the motivation to get back on, to go make something better, to admit, hey, that didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I apologize. I didn't mean it to come off like that, or I didn't want things to end like that. However, what I'd really like to do is get back to where we were, to get back to moving forward. The last of those, with about 5 minutes left, is social skill. So this is the last piece of the components of emotional intelligence. And this sentence here, I think, is the total key. Is social skill is friendliness with a purpose, moving people in a direction you desire. I always tell people, especially in this industry, because what do I hear from technicians all the time? Ain't no sales guy. News for you. You're always selling something. Everywhere. You're always selling something. Bet you sold to your wife. Had to. Brought her flowers, nice to her. Took her out to a nice restaurant, hopefully. Whatever it was, you were selling. You didn't treat her like garbage. I mean, you may have when you were a little kid, because that was like the cool thing to do. I remember those days, be mean to the person that you like, right? I still never understood that, but whatever. How do we, as leaders, understand that selling something is not a bad thing? Creating that picture of where we're going to go, what success looks like for that person, understanding what success looks like, and then inspiring them to go along that path. That's social skill. That's understanding that I'm going to create a relationship with this person. I'm going to create a friendship because I know it will help them. Because I know that with my help and their motivation and their skills, we can make something really great. It's tough sometimes to believe in others. And this is a quality that, it's got me burned sometimes, but for the most part, I think it's worked out all right, is believing in others and trusting in others. You've got to have that level of trust. And that's not just to say never creating a relationship and then trusting someone, but that's to say as you create that relationship, the trust should expand. What you get as the opposite is that relationship expand and I never trust you to do anything. That won't work. Maxwell says, assume integrity and honor, and you will attract it. I think that is one of the most profound statements because it's so true. Be what you want to attract. What do you think this place is? This place is a collection of people who are excited about getting better. Why is it that the people that walk in the door, oh dang it, they're really good. They're really good. If this was a bunch of dopes, the good people would be walking right out the door. Good people want to be around good people. Assume integrity and honor, and you will attract it. Assume good things. Be optimistic. Guess what a pessimistic person's probably never attracted? Good things. Doubtful. Or if they did, I'd like to meet them. That's pretty cool. Negative about something and attract something positive. Pretty remarkable, actually. I'll finish with a few helpful phrases that he puts on here. As it relates to leadership and all of the things that we've talked about, whether it be awareness, regulation, motivation, empathy, or social skill. Put a 10 on your people's forehead. As he says, when you do that, that's the level that you'll lead them at. If you think they're a 4, guess what kind of effort you're going to put in to lead them? A 4. Guess how much they're going to think you care? A 4. It's not going to be good. Outcome's not going to be great. It's wonderful when the people believe in their leader, but it's even more wonderful when the leader believes in their people. And you can say as a leader that you believe in your people all day long, but it's never really comes to life until you let them know, until you tell them. Encouragement is oxygen for the soul. I like that. Never heard that before I read this. Encouragement is oxygen for the soul. Doesn't that just make you feel good? You know? It's a lot more than telling somebody they did something wrong. Hey, I think we can do this better. Now, that conversation may change over time, but there again, if being positive about a misstep or a failure isn't working, then why aren't they motivated to do that? That may be a you problem. I know it's not fun to think about that, but if they're not motivated, why aren't they motivated? Have you tapped into what it is that motivates them? Maybe it's not money. Maybe it's something else. You have to dig in and find out. And then, once they're motivated, encouragement will work a whole lot better than like getting on somebody. Trust me. We said this one, people don't know how much you know. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think if we could all leave with that today and go out and show somebody that we care, well, I think we'd be in a lot better place, don't you? Loving people precedes leading people. Again, can you show someone today how much you care? Can you show a customer how much you care? I always say this. I know nothing about service, but I guarantee I could kill it on a service call because I would just show up and just be over the moon excited to be there for that customer. You have called the right person. I can't believe it. This is wonderful. We're going to get you taken care of today. I know you are stressed, but by golly, this is going to be awesome. With that mentality, how much nerves could you suppress in that customer? How many nerves could you suppress in your team if you were that motivated and they could feel your passion? How do you show it? Doesn't matter if it's a customer, it's someone internal, whatever it is. That's truly serving someone. Showing them your passion for what it is that you do. I get excited about what we do. We do some really great things. It's our obligation to show them. It's our obligation as leaders to show our people how much we care. I think that, as I said earlier, and I'll wrap up here, a few minutes over, there is a lot of things in leadership that we make extremely complicated. And there's really no reason to do it. Leadership is a lot of fun. I love coming here every single day. And I do because we have people that are motivated to get better. We have a room of people sitting here. That's so much fun. That's what it's all about. How do we create that passion? Because that will take us a long way. Create the passion, show them how much you care, go out of your way to make sure that they feel appreciated. Lend a hand, show them, how can I help you? By God, what are you struggling with? What is making you in a bad mood? I want to help. I don't even know if I can, but I'll get you a resource, I'll get you something. I'll get you a Coke or a beer or something, I want to help. Whatever you need. That's all leadership is. Someone asked me that earlier this week. I was doing something, and they said, what piece of advice would you give? And my piece of advice was, as I always say, go out and help somebody. If we all do that, you can't stop it if you just go out and help somebody. It's so simple. But it's hard, because there's a lot of things that get in the way. But if I can leave you with one thing, go show someone how much you care, and just go help them. For God's sakes, go help them.